Hey everyone, it's Amy here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to share with you guys another love it or leave it review on a new product from Tarte, and this is the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Volume 2 palette. I was really excited because I do have Volume 1. I love the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea line in general, whether it's the concealer, the foundation, the Twinkle highlight palettes, or the eyeshadow palette. I love that line in general. I love it. So when I saw that this was coming out, I was so excited to get my hands on it because these colors, you guys, they scream Amy. Look how beautiful these shades are. They are cool tone. They've got a couple smoky. I mean, this is just a really stunning palette. Let me show you guys the front. Here's what it looks like. It's stuck with that kind of purple and blue and dark purple theme on the front. And then it's got kind of some tree branches and everything on the front. I really love their packaging. I think it's cute, it's compact, it's easy to travel with. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to share with you guys some information from Tarte's website, a little bit of information on the formula. Then we're going to jump into the swatches, and then I will share with you guys some comparisons and share with you guys how to use this palette, some tips and tricks, and my final thoughts. So first, we're going to start with Tarte's website. It does retail for $36. Currently, right now, Tarte's website is the only place to get this palette. However, I have a feeling eventually this may come to Sephora since the rest of the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea is released there. But currently, it is only on Tarte's website. That's where I purchased mine, and it retails for $36. However, at the time that I'm filming this, there is the Friends and Family 30% going off, so hopefully that'll still be going on by the time I get this video up on Monday. If it is, I definitely would pick it up with 30% off. So the total grams in this palette is 1.5 grams for all 8 eyeshadows, and each of the 8 eyeshadows is 0.05 ounces, which is the same exact size, packaging, and everything as the original Volume 1 palette. So it says, crease-free eyeshadow palette with the best-selling creamy powder formula and 8 new cool tone shades. And then I won't read this information to you, but it is the Rainforest of the Sea line. So it has lots of antioxidant benefits. It has some really great ingredients. I love this line. Totally love it and would recommend it to you guys. But I wanted to read to you guys the part that says product performance, because if you've never tried the Volume 1 palette, this formula in here is very, very unique, especially for Tarte Cosmetics. So it says, discover the next generation of Tarte's cult favorite plush powder eyeshadow palette. No primer or brush needed. So I do agree that you don't have to use a primer. I have worn this several days to work with no primer. Got home, it had been 8+ hours and they still looked good. It was those days that I didn't take off my makeup till right before bed and it had been on for 12+ hours. That's when I started to see that the matte eyeshadows disappeared and that the luster shades started to kind of just get diffused and start to disintegrate. But honestly, an 8-hour eyeshadow that you don't have to use a primer for it to look this amazing the entire 8 hours is really, really fantastic. But if you need it to be longer wearing than that, I would suggest using a primer. And then it also says no brush needed. I do think if you're going to use the matte shades in the palette, you do need to use a brush. That's how they're best applied, and I will talk about those tips and tricks in a little while. But as far as the luster shades, the metallic foil shades in here, I do think they do apply well with a brush or your finger. So I do agree with that. It says the soft hybrid formula is part cream, part powder, which is what makes these really unique and definitely something you haven't seen a lot from Tarte. It says, infused with oxygenated light reflecting spheres for a plump, smooth texture and seamless payoff that never dries out or flakes. The 8 long-wearing cool tone shades include 4 mattes and 4 lusters that can be worn wet or dry. Yes, they kind of, like right now, I use them dry. They're very, very foiled, but if you do want to make them even more foiled and really, really wet looking, I would definitely use a setting spray or a MAC Fix Plus. Definitely because of this kind of creamy formula. Go in with your brush first dry, pick up the product, and then spray your brush, apply it, and wipe off your brush. Do not go in here completely wet brush. Otherwise, because it is a creamy formula, it's going to kind of get packed down and create a little bit of a hard pan, and it's just not going to work as well. So definitely use a dry brush when you go in here. And it says you'll get the antioxidant benefits of the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea complex with none of the icky bad stuff. So let's go ahead and jump right into the swatches and see how they apply. I will show you guys swatches that I've already done, as well as live brush swatches next to it. That way you can see how well they perform, how pigmented they are, and how well they build up. And then when we come back, I will share with you guys my thoughts and the comparison of the 2 palettes. So the first shade that I'm going to be swatching is a matte shade, and this one is called Conch, and this one is described as an off-white. Now this is one that does not swatch very well, but it's best applied as a base to help everything blend out, or to set your eyeshadow primer, or to use as a brow bone highlight. But it definitely applies better than its swatches, but it is the weakest one in the palette. Next, we have the shade Marina, which is described as a caramel brown color. And this to me is just like a perfect light brown transition shade. And you can see that it does build up nicely. I find with all the matte shades, you do have to take your time to build them up. Go with longer strokes, but start with smaller sections and just keep building and adding a little bit of length. And you will see that they do build up really nicely. So this is the shade Seaside, which is described as a chestnut brown. So it is cool toned, but it's on the verge of having a little bit of warmth in it, but it also is a really great shade in the palette. Next is our first luster shade. This is the one I'm wearing in the video. This is the shade Sunset, which is described as a yellow gold. It definitely has a strong yellow base to it, but it builds up really nicely on the lid. Like I had today, I didn't have to use any setting spray or MAC Fix Plus. It just kept building and building and building, and it's a beautiful shade. You can definitely make it less intense and not build it up, or you can keep building it up like I have today to give more of a foiled look. Now these next three shades are my favorite lusters in the palette. This one is Pearl White, and this is described as a white shimmer, and this is probably the strongest shade in the palette. As you could see with the first swatch, it was wonderful, and then you just keep building and building, and it looks as good as the swatch right next to it, so I love that shade. Next, we have another luster, which is described as a steel blue, and this is the shade Riptide. This is a really pretty blue. It's kind of a grayish blue color, but it's got a little bit of a dark blue purple undertone. It's really pretty. It builds up so nicely. It's a really strong smoky eye color in the palette. I think it's a gorgeous luster overall. It's not too blue, so it's definitely wearable. And then my absolute favorite shade in the entire palette is called Breezy. And this one is a shimmering slate, and it builds up so nicely. And what I love about this color is it's gray, it's purple, it's brown, it's got a little bit of blue in there. I mean, this is just an overall color I think is going to look fantastic on everyone. And this one, besides the pearl shade, is probably the second strongest shade in the palette. And then on to the last brown. This one is Siren, and this is described as a dark brown. Now at first, this is one of the matte shades that's a little harder to work with, but trust me, you just keep going in smaller sections, adding and building more and more, and it does become opaque, which is why I will talk about it afterward when we get back to the video. But definitely using a more dense brush to build it up is key with these matte shades. But you can tell you definitely can build it up to be a strong strength, just like the swatch right next to it. But let's go ahead and talk about this formula because it is very unique, especially for Tarte. I believe these two palettes are the only time that I've seen that Tarte has used this creamy powder formula. And the thing that I find closest to this formula is actually ColourPop Cosmetics. That's what these remind me of so much because they're very spongy. They almost kind of feel wet to the touch, and they definitely can be applied with a brush or your finger really easily. The only thing I will say is these feel a little bit more dense and a little bit more opaque than ColourPop, but otherwise, if you're used to ColourPop eyeshadows, you're going to be used to this formula really easily. Now, I will say the matte eyeshadows from ColourPop are not my favorite because they are that creamy powder formula. They aren't as easy to apply. Not that you can't apply them and can't blend them. There's just like a little bit of a learning curve to it, if that makes sense. So as far as the matte eyeshadows go, the way that I find they're best applied is to use more of a dense brush first to pack it on, and then go ahead and blend it out with a different fluffier brush. So these are two brushes that I actually like to use. This one right here is the one you saw during the swatches. This is the Sigma Medium Sweeper E54. This one really packs it on nicely. I also love this for the luster shades. And then this one is excellent for the matte shades to really get more of a precise application and really pack it on in the crease and in the outer V. And this is the Morphe E18 brush. So I like to use both of these to pick up those matte shades, place them on the eye and pack it on the eye, and then go in with any fluffier brush to blend it out. So this is the one I was using. This is the Zoeva 228. You can use a MAC 242, whatever it may be, but then I would go in after you've packed it on and then blend it out with a fluffy brush. I find trying to use a fluffy brush to pick up the product and put it on your eye, you're really not going to get as saturated and opaque as you would like, and you're going to have to keep building, building, and building. So definitely with the matte shades, I would suggest packing it on first with a dense brush, then using a fluffy brush to blend it out. It blends out really easily. As far as the luster shades go, like I said, I still like to use more of a dense shader brush like this Sigma one, or you can definitely use your finger, but if you really want to pack it on, use more of a dense brush. I just kept packing it on today with that Sunset shade, and I think it looks gorgeous. So overall, the formula is really, really fantastic. I think there's a little learning curve with the matte shades, but other than that, I think they're a beautiful formula. It's a cool formula. They're totally different than what you're used to from Tarte, and so I think that's really cool. So let's go ahead quickly and compare these two palettes. Here is what they both look like. This palette right here is the volume 2, and this palette right here is the original volume 1. So the packaging is the same as far as the colors being in the gold packaging with the purple and blue on the front. And then let's go ahead and look at the colors. So here are the two palettes close up side by side. This one right here is volume 1. You can see it's got more of neutral undertones, and then right here it has a couple warmer shades. And then this one right here is the volume 2. As you can see, it's got very, very cool tone shades. And then right here, it has a couple kind of smokier shades. So as far as these two palettes go, the formula is the same, the packaging is the same, the size is the same. They're both made in Italy. Nothing has changed about this other than the colors and the tones in here. So overall, I think this new Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Volume 2 palette is definitely a love it. The formula is great. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but definitely all these are pigmented, workable, blendable, and very, very long lasting, and they have really nice ingredients as well. So I definitely would recommend this palette to you guys if you're interested. It is available on Tarte's website, and then like I said, I have a hunch it'll eventually be coming to Sephora as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review and swatches of the new Tarte palette. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. That way you stay tuned to all my upcoming videos, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye!